Yo dudes, what's up? This is PlanetKeef, I'm Keef, and today I'm going to show you how to install a little router into a table to make a router table. How about that? So in a previous video I showed you how I made this piece of furniture. This will be my router table. And you don't actually need something as big and chunky as this. Basically something that's big enough to hold the router itself, and you know, rigid, pretty solid, so it doesn't wobble when you're working. So the basic principle of a router table is that the spindle sticks up through a hole in the tabletop, and also you need some kind of adjustable fence. That's essentially it, but also I want a remote power switch, because you know, I can't be operating that switch when it's under here inside a cupboard. You know, that just isn't a viable option. And the other thing is I'm going to fit a vacuum cleaner hose to the dust extract, again inside the cupboard, so hopefully that'll give us a clean and healthy working environment. Now I'm going to fit this power strip onto the rail there, and it's got a couple of keyhole holes, so all I need to do is pop a couple of screws in there. And the keyholes in the back of this are quite small, which means difficult to align. But there we go. Right, the door, I'm waiting for some neodymium magnets, which are super strong and should hold that in place, but right now it's got the vacuum cleaner. Now I'm building the top, and again this is cobbled together from panels from an old chest, and basically I want it to extend quite a bit at each side and at the front, so it's obviously not deep enough. So I've got a strip of new oak that I'll fit onto the back with dowels, and then we'll cut it all down, make it nice and neat. So I've actually got my jig screwed onto the workpiece because nothing else works. Okay, let's see if it fits. I think it will, with a bit of bashing. So here's my patchwork quilt of oak top. So now I'm just going to trim the edge. There it is, nice and straight. And now I'm going to flip it round and do the other edge. So now I've got the top upside down. It's pretty grotty, but I'm going to route the edges. I've already done the short edges, that one, and now I'm going to do the long one. So as always, fingers crossed. Looks alright to me. What I'm going to do now is paint it with tea. This is about a cup of boiling water and 10 tea bags steeped in it. It'll just colour it a bit, not like strong tea, but just a bit. It dries lighter. Now, I said there'd be magnets, and here they are. They're 2 centimetre diameter with a countersunk hole. Now, they are incredibly powerful, but they're also very brittle. So if you do actually let them bang together too hard, they will shatter. Right, let's get them fitted. Okay, so we're kind of winging it with this magnet and just a little steel angle bracket. Ka-ching. So that will fix onto the door, and this will fix onto the floor inside. And if one magnet isn't enough to hold it closed, I can add another, and possibly another, because each addition increases the magnetic strength. So this router, I've reviewed it before, so you will know that I actually hate it as a plunge router because it just doesn't work for me in that way. But it is also designed to be used mounted under a table, so I think I might have more success with that. And basically this is the Triton JOF001, which is the baby of their range. I've seen people using bigger models, and the procedure for installing it is slightly different, because basically you've got a spring in here that you take out, and I don't think I need to do that for this one. But what I do need to do is remove this base plate, and then I'll use those 3 holes for my fixing through from underneath. I need a hole that's the same diameter as the real base plate, but with an inset that will stop dust and everything from escaping, but we'll still we'll have a hole in the middle to let the spindle show through. And also we have a winding handle which is supplied with this that fits into there, and so that will go through the top as well, and that lets you adjust the height of the spindle up and down, and quite easy and straightforward. And then for the fence, there's this fence mechanism that fits onto the router base plate. Now, I don't think I can make that work as is. I suppose I could do it if I inset that into the tabletop, but I don't think I will do that. It's not actually particularly smooth. You would think a big old engineered thing like this would just, you know, be nice and glidey, but it isn't. It's tight. It doesn't even hold square really. But I think I will use this part of it as my actual fence, but figure out some other way to make it adjustable. Right, this is getting a bit interesting. I mean that in a completely negative way. I can't get this to move any further than it is, but it needs to move further down, so it'll engage that button, which is the spindle lock, and you need that locked so that the spindle doesn't go around when you're trying to change a router bit. So that's locked, so now the locking nut will do its job. But yeah, I can't get it any tighter. So then I thought, well, maybe there is a spring in here. So I took it off, and voila, no spring. However, when I take that off, it means that the router moves up and down very nicely. But when I put this back on, it doesn't move. So I don't know why. But then I'm looking at this little bugger here, which is the sort of depth stop mechanism, and that is spring loaded. So I think if I can take that turret thing off, so that just screws through from the underside. Try and get some clearance. There we go. Woo! Right. That was a spring with a ball bearing in the end and a load of grease. So let's see what we can do now. I'm looking at that lock button. Yeah, looking good. Didn't lock that. Oh, it's locked. It's locked. Yeehaw! Okay, Right, now we're in business, I think. So basically when this is installed and I need to change the router bit, that's going to be quite easy. Now the next thing is to see how much height that is. Let's see how. I can speak English. So that's about 16 mil, and that's down as far as it'll go. So that will, the thickness of the top is about 20. I'll say about because it's an old chunk of oak and it's not massively even. Okay, so I positioned the router where I wanted it with the base plate fixed on, and then I've routed this tiny little hole to mark the centre and drew around the base plate. So now I can locate that and mark the holes that I'll need to drill and countersink probably to fit the router to the underside of the table. There we go. Now, tricky bit is to cut a hole there, that size. I don't have any big hole saws or anything. Oh, and also a rebate around its edge, a shallow rebate for the cover plate to drop into. Right, I figured it out. I'm going to use my little old, well, my quite large new Aldi router. I thought this Triton router was enormous, but this is actually about the same size. So anyway, and if we look at the base plate, it's got a smaller hole than the Triton one. So what I reckon I can do is fix a pin, or a small bolt through the base plate and through the workpiece, through the centre hole, and use that as the centre of rotation to do the rebate for the cover plate and also to do the hole itself. So first of all, I'll use this bigger straight bit, which is about 16 mil diameter, and then using the same centre of rotation, I'll change the bit and use this smaller one, which is well, it's supposed to be 12.5. So that'll give me a little rebate of about 3 mil width to sit my cover plate in, and that'll be fine. So the router cover plate is just held on with 4 screws, and there's quite a lot of space underneath it in the aluminium casting, so I can drill a hole where I need it and put a bolt through to be my centre pin, and we'll bolt that through and we'll fix that with a nut right through the whole workpiece, and it should be wonderful. Now there's a slight problem because when we put the plate on, the bolt drops down, which is going to make it tricky to get it through the hole in the workpiece. So a quick solution, a lump of blue tack which will hold it where I need it. So that's pretty cool. So I'll fix the plate on and then we can get on with it. So I've moved it to the workbench, got it clamped nice and tight so it won't wander off anywhere. And now the tricky bit is to get that pin fixed through that hole. Right, ready to rock and roll. And remember, the first cut is not the deepest. Right, so I've swapped in the smaller bit, and now I'm going to go around probably 4 or 5 times, making it about 4 or 5 mil deeper on each cut. Right, there's my hole, and there'll now be a slight delay while I work out which way the thing should rotate. Okay, I think I've got it sussed. So on this router it's actually marked, or it's cast into the base plate which direction it goes. So it goes that way, which is anti-clockwise, counterclockwise. So I thought I'd better check my screw sizes before I start drilling holes in that. just in case. So this is the original screw that was holding on the plastic base plate, and it's 6mm diameter. So I've got some M6 screws which are 25mm long, and I tried it in there and it does that. Won't go any further, which clearly doesn't give me a lot of tolerance. But there's these are the 3 template holes, but then there's 3 other cast threaded holes which the screw goes into quite a lot, that much. So that's fabulous, that's the ones that I want. And on closer inspection, it turns out the thread pitch of the original and the normal screw is considerably different. I'm going to have to make a paper template to get these 3 different holes and transfer that to the workpiece and drill them. Right, so the other thing I need to take care of is the winding handle, which turns out to have a diameter of 10.78. The biggest actual drill bit I've got is 10mm. So, well, I'll use that part of the way, and then I'll use this 12mm diameter router bit and see if we can enlarge the hole a little bit with that. Let's see. Oh yeah. I'm in the kitchen, which isn't normally where you expect to find PlanetKeef, but while I'm making that router table and a correspondingly massive amount of dust, I've moved the 3D printer into the house, and at some point I'll build a dustproof enclosure for it in the garage. And the reason I'm talking about a 3D printer is because I'm going to 3D print the cover plate to cover that hole where the router bit sticks up. So whenever you 3D print something, you need first of all a 3D model of the object, and then that is turned into digital code that the machine can understand. So I'll just run you through the design. I started off with a flat disc, which is quite thin, 1.5mm, and then added a shallow tube slightly inset from the edge, which will bring the depth, the overall depth, to 5mm, which is the depth of the hole that I've routed, well, the depth of the rim. And then a hole in the centre where the router bit will stick through, and a little notch on the side of that so I can get my finger in and remove it when I need to. And ribs radiating out from the centre just to stiffen it a little bit. So very simple, and I've done this in Tinkercad, which is wonderful free software. It's very easy to use, it's quite powerful, and for basic models like this it's a dream. You know, it took me maybe 15 minutes to make that model, so that's kind of cool. And once we've made the model, we export it to an STL file, and then we import it into our slicing software, in my case Ultimaker Cura. And basically this just determines what movements the 3D printer will make to create the object. Okay, there's the cover plate, and fits quite nicely, except it's dips down here, which is where there's been some warping where it's come away from the print bed. So I'm going to have to reprint that, which is not the end of the world, because I would have to reprint it anyway, because I can't live with that orange and that red together. I'm sorry, I just can't. So I'll get myself some orange filament and then reprint it and make sure we don't get that warping. Okay, so I'm going to use these fixing blocks. I'll just need to cut the lug off each one. It's got this hexagonal recess that stops the bolt from going around. Pop it through that hole, and this is the wrong way around, just so you can see. So I just need to mark out where I need to put my slots, so it'll be over here and we'll move up and down. Okay, got my 2 slots marked, and hopefully they're perfectly parallel, because I might be a bit stuffed if they're not. Anyway, so now what I'm going to do is drill a hole at the end of each slot, just so we know where we are, and then the router, I'll have to use it sideways. Actually, I'm having to use the Triton router because I don't have a bit the right size for the other one. Okay, we've got an adjustable fence. That'll do the job. Now I just need to tidy up these slightly wonky edges. Right, now I'm going to attempt to fit the router to the underside of the table, and I've got no illusions about this being easy. So that's the hole that the winder handle engages through, and that's the screw hole next to it. Couldn't do it with that. That's the right length that I need, but there's nothing. There's not enough of it for me to see what's going on. So I'm going to put this longer one in, just to get the position for the first fixing. Alright, that's one, but it's temporary. Ha. Right, I've done it, and it was every bit as hard as I thought it would be. My goodness. Anyway, that's fixed. Okay, so, well, the next bit is to fix the top onto the cabinet. Probably the easiest way is to get the cabinet up here, upside down, so that I'm, you know, not screwing up into fresh air, as it were. You know what I mean. Right, so the cabinet base is upside down on the top, on the workbench. So all I need to do now is fix the top to the base. Right, I thought I was pretty much done with this now, because, you know, I've got the fence installed, I've got the cover plate more or less sorted. I'm going to reprint that again because it's still warped. So I've connected up the router's power to the power strip, and what I want to do is have the router power switch permanently on, and I'll use the switch on the power strip to turn it on and off. Magic. Doesn't work though, because the way I've mounted it, the whole router is too low, and it's to do with the locking mechanism, the safety mechanism, when you have the collet basically fully extended, so that brings it up to the level of, you know, the top of the table, but actually I need it to come up standing proud when I'm changing bits and collets, and then it goes back down to be level when there's a bit installed, and that deactivates the spindle lock and lets me switch that switch on. So basically what I'm going to have to do is route a recess of about 5mm in the underside of this, so that the router will fit in a little bit higher. That's what we call an embuggerance. So the collet is down, and I can operate the switch, and that's in the on position, and then switch it on with the power strip. So I've got to turn it upside down, so I've got my wonderful assistant to assist.
Mrs. Keef lifts. There we go.
Mrs. Planet.
All right.
You're Mrs. Planet when we're on this channel.
Mrs. Planet. Haven't finished the induction yet. Come on then.
Yeah, I know.
Here we go. So, look where you went. Or not, as the case may be.
Just rest the front edge.
Yeah, I got it. Where's the doorknob? Alright.
Yeah.
By George, I think we've got it. Right, said Keith.
Thank you.
To get thing up. Turn that script up. Right.
Okay.
Tea.
Yes, please. Okay, so that's all unscrewed. Just have to wait for the tea lady to come back with my tea. Just lift it up and then tip it over because the router's still inside there. Okay.
Bloody microphone stand. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So the reason I kept the router fixed onto the top was so I can draw an outline that is what we need to cut out. Okay, so I've removed the router and we got a big hole, which is a problem because I need a small hole in the centre for my locating pin for the router to rotate around, and I looked in my bits bin and I found this, the original hole, or you know what was the original hole, but yeah, I took about 6mm off that when I was cutting it out, so that is no good. And then I thought, 3D printed cover plate, but also that's got a big hole in the middle. I could print one with a small hole, but it would take a couple of hours, so I'm just going to find a scrap of wood and fix it across. There we go, a couple of minutes with a saw. I need to find the centre. 170, what's half of 170? 85. And drill a little hole. Okay, I'm doing what I did before to locate the pin, which is to take off the cover plate and drill a little hole. As it happens, what I've calculated is it needs to be right there, really close to the edge. But, well, hopefully it'll work. So after lots of messing about, here's the pin, here's the bit, and guess what? It's not right. That from the centre of the pin to the outside of the bit is 77mm, and we actually need it to be 85. I really don't know how I'm going to get that because I haven't got a bigger bit. You know, that is literally on the edge of the metal. I think I'll go shopping and come back after a bit of a ponder. Right, I've been to Aldi, come back with exactly what I went to get, and didn't get any new power tools. Hey! And also, I realise I'm being silly. I can use that method with the pin to do the inner 3 or 4 rounds, and then to do the outer, I can use the mechanism that comes with the router to do circles. The only thing being that the centre pin location is offset somewhat, and that's going to be very challenging. I likes a challenge. I keep saying that, I don't. And don't forget, health and safety, very important. What you say? Can't hear you. Right, here we go then. No, I'm thinking I can just do this kind of like freehand, this inner ring. So I need to take the pin off now. Actually, I've decided to do this out a bit freehand because it'll save a lot of messing about. It won't be perfect by any means, but it doesn't need to be. There's my hole, and there's my thing, my router fits with, you know, quite a bit of space left over, but it doesn't matter. So now hopefully that's deep enough to do what it needs to do. Yeah, I can probably, yeah, I'll fix it on and then I can test it to see that it does actually work. Right, that's all tickety-boo, and I've tested it and it sort of does what it's supposed to do, I think. So now we'll put the thing back together and then we can finish it off. Yes! So I was expecting that now this is finished and that I could just whiz a bit of wood through it and get a lovely routed edge and show you how it is. But, well, I did try. I've completely got the wrong idea of how you use a router table. So I found a few videos, and what I discovered was that what I thought was this fence moves backwards and forwards, and you pop your timber through between the router bit and the fence. And that is completely not how you do it. The opposite, in fact. What you have to do is have the fence basically lined up with the centre of the bit, or offset if you want it. So these slots aren't actually long enough to allow that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a fence board on there, and I'm going to put some featherboards on as well, because we might as well do the whole hog thing. So that'll take a bit more time, but I've been editing this video and it's 30 minutes long already, so I really have to knock it on the head. So the next one, part 3, I'll finish this off and then I'll do the vacuum extraction system, which also is going to be quite a thing. It's going to have the router permanently plumbed into it. It's going to be able to accommodate the sliding mitre saw when it's on here, and also there'll be a flexible hose coming out the front which will connect up to my jigsaw and my Aldi router. Haha! So that will involve a fair bit of 3D printing as well, I think. Anyway, that's it for now. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, share, subscribe, etc. And thanks for watching, and see you next time.